All right. Hello, podcast listeners. This is week 5 of the U.S. Civics podcast assignment. My name is Dan McCarrick, and let's get this week up. So we have what's up with Trump. So let's start with this article first. This is a New York Times article. I'll just read over my quick description. A federal judge at Oregon has once again blocked the Trump administration from deploying the National Guard troops into the state. Judge Karen Immert ruled that the President Trump's attempt to send out-of-state troops from California and Texas directly violated her earlier order. The administration claimed the deployment were necessary to protect the federal property during the small protests in Portland, but the judge said the demonstration was largely peaceful and did not justify military intervention. The move has drawn strong backlash from Democratic governors, who accuse the president of overstepping his authority and by federalizing state troops. Without permission, Governors Gavin Newsom of California and Tina Kotek of Oregon called the plan an abuse of power, while Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker described it as Trump's invasion. Despite Texas Governor Greg Abbott support for the deployment, legal experts say the action was likely exceeded the president's constitutional powers. For now, the judge orders halt the use of the National Guard in Oregon, but the political and legal fight over the present authority continues. So I think this really shows what Trump's been up to. I said this about last week for the podcast, how Trump is legitimizing his power now as almost a dictatorship. For one, he shut down the government, right? He shut down the federal government. I wouldn't say he did it, but he influenced the Republicans to not agree with the Democrats to suit the bill. From today's date, 10/6, it's officially been about 6 days since the shutdown. And so I saw footage of the deployment in Oregon. It's really not necessary for military at all. It's just Trump enforcing his overall power into the state. And I think this is kind of scary. How is he doing it? He's just deploying these national troops into these areas, which just protest, but they're not. In Trump's eyes, it almost seems like they're riots. They're really not. I saw the actual footage of it. It's really not. Maybe you can do it yourself. It's really not. Now, segment 2. So, segment 2 is what's called. So, for now, I want to do a Pew Research like last week. So, this Pew Research goes over how Americans view the Israeli and Hamas conflict 2 years into the war. So, you see a general rise now into many people saying that the war is going too far. Oh, but you still see a large percentage of people who are very not sure of what is happening, and many of them are, it's not a very few percentage, however, is also subtracting to it's not going far enough, which is more like the radicals, like radical Islam, Israelis talking about and taking the right approach. It's getting less and less, and more people are saying it's going too far. I think, for my opinion, I think it's going way too far, anyways. And then goes into. Says a third of Americans say the U.S. gives too much military assistance to Israel. A similar share say that it gives too little humanitarian aid to Gazans. So I mean, this year already, Trump has denied some Medicaid to Gaza after Israel said that it was going straight to Hamas. So he actually shut a governor in, I believe, Louisiana was talking about it, tweeted about it, and then Trump, when it was called Trump, what he did was that he cut off the Medicaid to Gaza right after that governor's comment on Twitter, or X, if you call it that, I guess. But then, let's see. You see that many people can very much see that Trump is very much favoring Israel way too much. But then there's some people are also saying that he's striking to the right balance too. But pretty much nobody is saying it's favoring the Palestinians though. And again, you see this large percentage of people who are literally not sure. Not sure can be many things, but I think most of the not sures are more like the people who literally do not know anything about it. I think there are people who are blind from the fact of what's happening in Gaza, and I think it's kind of scary because this is a current genocide that's happening right now. And then when it comes to Israel military conflict with Hamas, the U.S. is providing too much. Again, it's just overall, you can see the overall support for Palestine going up throughout all these graphs. And again, many Americans have concerns about starvation in Gaza, military strikes' impact on Palestinian citizens, and then the return of Israeli hostages. Overall, people want ceasefire to not to happen. Not they don't want the war to continue. They see that that people in Gaza are starving to death, and they also see that they also holding Israeli hostages. This is honestly, the Israeli hostages are their only scapegoat and only leverage against Israel. Without that, Israel would 100% go in there and just wipe it all out. But this is their only pawn. And I'll explain this later in segment 4, but there's something very much connected to this in the later articles I'll explain. Okay, this is, what I talked about. And now let's talk about segment 3, Generation Z in the news. For this one, I talked about Donald Trump. Okay, this goes on to, this is basically segment 3 and segment 4 are basically combined, right? Let's talk about this. So Trump urges negotiators to move fast as Gaza ceasefire talks to set begin in Egypt. Again, so this article says that Donald Trump is urging to move too fast as a new ceasefire talk begin in Cairo aimed at ending the war in Gaza, securing the release of the hostages held by Hamas, as we talked about earlier. The discussion marks that the first Trump's proposed peace plan, which would see Hamas release 48 remaining hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held in Israel. Trump said that the first phase should be completed in a week, even as Israeli airstrikes continue across Gaza. Okay, step aside from anything we just said, how is there a peace deal going on without any of the Palestinian negotiators in that room of discussion? It is literally only Israel and America. There's Palestine does not have a say in it at all. It does not have a say in how the border should be met. If a ceasefire, they want a ceasefire, but they also want their human rights to still be there. Again, there's something to think about while reading this. Hamas would lay down its weapons and hand governing control to U.S.-led transitional authority, while Israel would gradually withdraw troops and release more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. The proposal would also trigger major humanitarian reconstruction aid for Gaza. Despite Trump call for immediate halt to bombing, Israel military has continued operations. Crazy. Gaza's health administration report over 67,000 deaths and 170,000 injuries since the conflict began, with about half of the victims being women and children. Women and children, over half of them. The demographics of this is nuts. It almost seems that it almost seems like the IDF is specifically targeting them. Global leaders, including Germany Chancellor, have voiced cautious optimism, calling Trump's plan the best chance for peace, though skepticism remains over whether side will fully commit to the deal. Again, why is the Palestinians not in a say in this? They should have a say in their own land. Why isn't they're not there? Why is it only USA as a mediator? Again, okay, this goes in, I'll just talk about it in segment 4 now. Segment 4, something that I want to argue about. I want to argue about how the quote unquote like deal with Trump is really not that great. Reason being is one that is really the Hamas does not have any say in it. I want to say Palestinians have no say in what type of border would be happening after that, what land would given back. If these people are giving back their prisoners and everything, how would be given back rightfully so? Like, these are questions to be asked because in the past these have not went well, and the only reason Palestine has hostages in the first place is not to kill them. No, it's just for leveraging against the Israeli government. That's the only way to leverage it. So then if Hamas were to agree to this deal, it is almost saying, like, it's almost scared screw you to the Palestinian people because they're not taking it in mind. If they don't accept it too, guess what? They have to continue the war and more than likely get wiped out by Israel. However, I remember we talked about last week where we talked about the humanitarian ship that's come to Gaza. I mean, it already made it to the shores of it, not specifically Gaza, but to the sea, and it's heading there now. So I haven't seen a lot of stories about that. But then, the two ones I want to talk about is the Qatar and Trump's warning of massive bloodshed if Hamas fails to agree to the peace deal. To move fast is not the only reason to want to move fast. Guess what? It's because Israel is still bombing Gaza. They're still bombing Gaza as this peace deal is going on. Why would you want a peace deal for Why would you want to do a peace deal with the same country that is still bombing you as they're talking? There's no ceasefire right now. There's nothing like that. Only Israel is the one going on to them. So why? So why are they still doing this? And then this Trump, okay, he just talked about Donald Trump on his toes, talking about Hamas and everything. Very positive discussion of Hamas and countries from all over the world. We had some very good meetings. It looks like it's working. So we'll wait to see how it turns out. I'm really interested how this peace deal will come out. I'm really interested how the borders will be set, how the Palestinians will get their land back, if they will in the first place. And the only reason why this didn't happen earlier was because Israel bombed the place in Qatar where the Hamas negotiators were at. The place where Israel bombed in Qatar, which Qatar is supposed to be a middle state between, basically like a gateway for the United States to be inside the Middle East. I mean, in Qatar right now, you see the largest military U.S. base in Qatar. This is a bombing Qatar. Bombing Qatar, it seems like Israel was already they're planning a quote unquote peace deal, right? But they didn't want the negotiators there from Hamas. No, of course not. They killed them in this airstrike. In Qatar, again, this is in another country, not even in Gaza. I don't know how people can support Israel still now. Because you can clearly see that this is a tyrannical government that is doing deliberate things to expand it to a greater Israel. Yeah. Pretty much that's it for this week. This week is just more anger, honestly, towards the Israeli government, and you just see a lot more about the ceasefire and everything like that. I mean, this overall this podcast for this week was talking about Israel again because it's just very prominent right now. I hope more people were to know about this. Again, this is US Civics Week 5. Thank you for listening. I'll see y'all next week, which I'll hope a ceasefire will begin, and let's hope that the federal government will actually not be shut down anymore. And I hope it will not be continued until the end of November, which will be the longest in history. The second longest was the Trump administration, again, for 35 days. Again, crazy. Anyways, thanks for listening. I'll see y'all later. And yeah, see y'all later.